What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Commentary for you. If things sound different, we have had to switch VoIP carriers since we had a little technical issue, but we weren't going to let that deter that from UFC Sacramento. Before we get into that, we eclipsed 100 ratings on iTunes, which apparently is a really big deal. Apparently, that's one of those things where when you look at the coding of how iTunes pushes shows, clearing that 100 hurdle hump was a very big deal. So I appreciate you guys. So does Jimmy, of course, getting us past that. Absolutely. So Monkey78, Dr. Kickles, Jay Helion, thank you for the reviews that you left us over on Podbean, Mark.Short09, SMASALEX, and CZJX65. Again, appreciate the support to the show. So, Jimmy, UFC Sacramento in the rearview mirror. We did get a little bit of heat. I didn't actually share this with you, but we did get a little bit of heat for the way we talked about Uriah Faber. So, I didn't feel that we were overly disrespectful to him, but obviously a couple of the fans did. So, sure. I guess in hindsight, how do you feel now? Well, before we get into the event, we'll just begin the episode with that. How do you feel now after what happened?
Not any different. I wasn't critical, and you and I don't believe, we're critical of Uriah Faber's abilities, or that I didn't think he would win this fight, but I'm not shocked that he won this fight. It's my analogy. And let me back up just a little bit more, okay? And maybe having fought and having trained and having gone through camps, every camp takes something out of you. Every fight takes something out of you. Different fights take out different amounts. They all take out something that you'll never get back. Okay, can we acknowledge that? Does that sound unreasonable to you? Every camp and every fight takes something out of you. Am I wrong?
No, not at all. I completely agree. And to be honest with you, I'm before you even continue, I'm almost on the same wavelength. Listen, I am glad Uriah Faber won. I'm happy for him as a person. However,
sure, totally. Very nice guy.
As an athlete, the concerns that I had before the fight and all the things we mentioned leading up to it are still the same, if not more justified now than before we said them.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, and I want to explain this to the fans 100%, is if every camp and every fight takes something out of you, you have to have a real reason for every single one. Okay? I don't see a comeback Uriah Faber getting any further than a young Uriah Faber got. I don't, if Dan Marino came back to the NFL, and for those who aren't old enough to remember, he was the greatest quarterback of the 80s, basically, statistically speaking, but he never won a Super Bowl, right? That was a big knock on Dan Marino. Is great quarterback, every accolade you can get as a quarterback, except he never won a Super Bowl. If Dan Marino came back in 2019, anything other than winning a Super Bowl isn't worth it. He's done everything but win a Super Bowl. Uriah Faber, him coming back in 2019, if he doesn't win a UFC title, what's he doing it for? He did everything in his first run except win a UFC title. I don't think this Uriah Faber at 40 is any more likely to win a UFC title, despite all the opportunities he had when he was younger. He's not going to win it now. So why come back and take these beatings and go through these camps? Can he beat Ricky Simone? Clear, good for him. Great. He beat Ricky Simone. He's always beaten up and coming, mid-level, high-level guys. He just couldn't get the brass ring. I don't see him being any more likely to get the brass ring this time around. That's my own. The only thing I'm saying about Uriah Faber, and for any, I generally don't like comebacks because we almost never see a better version of the fighter. So, whether it's Uriah Faber or GSP or any, I don't like seeing fighters come back after they've had great careers, accomplishing everything they could realistically accomplish, and riding off into the sunset. I want them to stay retired. So, him beating Ricky Simone, okay, but he always beat the Ricky Simones of the world in his prime. He lost to Tyson Griffin. Frankie Edgar wasn't champ. It's just one of those things where Jimmy Rivera, it's just, I don't see him this time around becoming champion. So what is he going to do? Beat more mid-level guys? Okay, he already did that. He already accomplished that. Uriah Faber's back. Yeah, okay, he beat Ricky Simone, but he's always been able to beat the Ricky Simones of the world. If he can't win a title, I don't want to see him come back and suffer more damage. That's my only point. Not can he beat Ricky Simone? I didn't think he'd beat Ricky Simone. I'm like, hey, he did. Great. Good for him. Wonderful. Fantastic. Great moment. But if he's not going to beat Henry Cejudo, which I don't think he will, I don't see the point of a comeback. I never have. I don't really like comebacks in combat sports. They're too dangerous.
And let me just say, it's nothing for me personal with Uriah Faber. If it's Dominic Cruz, if it's Renan Barão,
exactly,
I'm feeling the same exact way. If it's Jose Aldo, I'm feeling the same exact way. I mean, Frankie Edgar just retired. Those group of fighters, I will forever link to Uriah, just because they were all at an extremely high level. They all fought while at an extremely high level. They all kind of came up together. And while I'm not saying that Uriah Faber's skill set isn't lacking of him going out and finding success, this fight here was not a title fight. It was not even a contender fight. Let's not kid ourselves. The talk afterwards has become of that of a title fight. That to me is ridiculous. You can check the record on our 40 shows now. I have no issue calling out people for jumping in line. If he gets a title shot over this, it is a massive jump in line, and I'm sorry. It's an injustice to everyone else in the division, regardless of who Uriah Faber is. Before we did this podcast, I felt the same thing about GSP. There's legacies that can be respected, historical, when you look at MMA. But those legacies don't mean you should be able to jump in, get one fight, and then all of a sudden be in title contention. And as I said, Uriah Faber, one of my favorite fighters of all time. I will always be appreciative and indebted to him for what he brought to my life in terms of memories and making me a better MMA fan. But I'm not so blinded by that, I can't look at the reality of what's happening. And even though, thankfully, I was wrong about the outcome of this fight,
Simone got rocked him and tried too hard for the finish. He actually rocked Uriah Faber pretty bad and went a little too swarm crazy and got clipped himself. So tactically, that's what happened. I'm not sorry he won. I really like Uriah. Really nice guy, and I've been watching him since he was a local California guy. But God, it's just the story of comebacks generally doesn't end well, and I don't want to see that happen. It's almost like the more I like a fighter, the less I want to see him come back. Personally, I just don't want to see that happen. So, good win for him. I'm worried that now he'll get a title shot. He's always come short in those big fights. That's the one of the stories of his career. Great fighter who could never be the guy. He could be up there. He could be almost the guy, but never the guy.
We will revisit this in 3 fights. So first of all, start off Vettori versus Vieira. To me, what was a really exciting fight, a great way to start off the main card. It did start with an eye poke, but both guys were really aggressive. I thought Vettori was landing very heavy, but almost as we talked about, it looked like the gas tank ran out for Cesar. It looked like he started to shoot for takedowns like I've talked about in past fights where he's point fighting. I mean, in the last round, I counted. I actually made a thought process of saying, okay, he's down, but if he point fights out, he might be able to pull the last round and win. How many takedowns does he go for? He went for at least 4. 4 that were clear-cut that you could see. So to me, that kind of is beginning to become an issue with him. He gets settled in. He doesn't actually create the chaos, if you will, that he needs to. And then he kind of falls back on relying on takedowns to point fights out. And it's just not, when it works, it looks decent. When it doesn't work, it looks awful. Because he did not look good in this fight at all.
No, not at all. And the first thing to me is that's a bad strategy when you're in a hole. If you want to preserve a lead that way, okay. But he was in a hole going into that 3rd round. So it's a bad way to get out of a hole. Secondly, he's not setting up his takedowns. None of them are from the right range. None of them are particularly clean. Vettori could see them a mile away. And that was it for Fajeda. When he was reaching for those takedowns in the 3rd round, this is a guy, Cesar Fajeda, his style, he has to get on top of you early. The round 1 was the time to commit to takedowns. Round 1 was the time when Vettori was really feeling good with the stand-up to change levels and see what you could do. Round 3, when you're out of gas, and you're reaching and you're huffing and puffing, you're not going to get those takedowns. Everybody's sweaty. You're not going to get those takedowns. So it was almost the reverse kind of strategy. I thought he would really try for takedowns early, and he was almost content to stay on the outside and get beat up early for the first 2 rounds. By the time he went to his takedown game, it was all done, and all Vettori had to do was stall. And that's the worst place to be for a grappler is, oh, man, I got to take him down, get dominant position, and finish him in 5 minutes. That's a tough ask. That is and also early in the fight, Vettori mounted him, which it seemed like Fajeda just was almost like, oh my God, this guy's trying to mount me. And then the first round, he got mounted. Like he didn't expect Vettori to try to advance position. It was just strategically almost on its head. I thought Fajeda would do all that stuff early, where get the takedown early, use the jiu-jitsu to kind of wear Vettori down, and then Vettori would be in position in the 3rd round where it was, crap, I need a knockout. That didn't happen at all.
I alluded to it earlier, and I'll ask you again. To me, it seems natural. If he wants to be competitive, the move up to 205 seems to be the only way. Right now he's on a 2-fight skid against Ian Heinisch, who, inside MMA fans know Ian is a very, very good fighter. Your casual fan, unfortunately, may not really even know Ian's name. And then obviously another poor outing here where he lost both times by unanimous decision.
Heinisch is a beast. Heinisch is a guy that I really have my eye on in the division. The issue, of course, with moving up is Fajeda's grappling style. He doesn't have the most efficient, clean takedown in the world. And those guys are big, strong, athletic, technical. 205, I think maybe last year, a couple of years ago, there was a lot of room at 205 for talent. We're starting to realize that it's getting full up. It's not an easy out going from 185 to 205. Like, oh, all the veterans are getting old. I can fill in. Dude, it's starting to fill up in there. 205 is getting rough again with younger talent. There's not a lot of room for a Fajeda who's on a 2-fight skid to go in there and get a handshake win. Ask Luke Rockhold how that went. Still a very, very tough division. It's getting tougher every UFC. Light heavyweight's getting better.
Luke Rockhold doesn't remember how that went, Jimmy.
Too soon going after Luke Rockhold. Not cool. No, he doesn't remember. Doesn't remember at all.
If he doesn't remember, it never happened. Moving up the card, though.
Yeah, sure.
Moving up the card, Carl Robertson, Wellington Thurman. A split decision, which I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't agree with. Just right off the bat, there were a lot of exchanges to start this. Then they kind of had like a grappling-based 2nd and 3rd round that I think kind of muddied the water as to who was winning. I was a little bit disappointed, though, in Robertson because he was the striker. He should have been the one to go out and put the fight into his wheelhouse and push the pace. And really, I think that uneventful performance is what really led to him winning. From a fan's perspective, I expected him to see somebody coming into the UFC, assert himself as the better fighter, not allow the fight to go down to the ground, or if it did, be dominant. And when he wasn't, that was enough for me to say, okay, he lost the fight. I mean, he really should have been the one that imposed the entire will of this fight, and instead he really let Thurman dictate the fight to him. And a lot of times I think he wound up in losing situations. I mean, he could not get out of elementary jiu-jitsu positions against somebody that sure is good, but this was his first true test. And generally when we see people come in with that first true test, they either get blown out of the water, lost in the lights, or win. So it's kind of weird to see somebody come in, go the full fight, and then get a split decision loss. I really thought it was Thurman's fight because of what I expected Robertson to do.
Number one, I thought Thurman won the fight as well. Number two, I was impressed with how he came out in round one. He came out with confidence. He came out sharp. Now, I gave Robertson round one, I believe, if I remember correctly. But Thurman came out like he wasn't afraid. Like, I'm stepping in here just like any other fight. He looked sharp. He didn't look lost in the lights. He didn't look discombobulated. He didn't look overcome by the moment. He fought sharp. Thought he lost the first round, if I remember correctly. But I liked his physical aggression in the first round. And he didn't seem like a guy who was, oh my God, what am I doing here? And I thought I had it 1-1 going into the 3rd round, and I thought he finished strong. I thought he won the 3rd round. So yeah, it is kind of strange to see a new guy have a veteran performance like Thurman did and end up on the losing end. Very, very rare.
I will say, I was more impressed with Thurman in the loss than I was in Robertson in the win. And that probably is just my bias.
1,000%. 1,000%. Yeah, I agree with you. I want to see Thurman again. That's the guy I want to see again is Turman.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely correct. So moving up, we're about to get into 3 knockouts. We'll start Josh Emmett and Bektic. To me, this was your classic Josh Emmett performance that we're starting to see. I mean, his footwork is there. His precision is there. His power is, I don't want to say scary, because there's a lot of people that can bang in the featherweight division, but he is putting in performances to move himself forward. To me, they're not the most, I guess, efficient performances. When I look at him, I still see some areas for improvement, but you can't deny it. He is basically knocking down everybody that gets put in front of him.
He knocked him down with a jab. And it took me, I had to rewind 3 or 4 times. Dude, he knocked him down with a jab? That's pretty rare. And if you look at the look on his face, oh my God, he's down. Like, oh shit, I knocked this guy down with a jab. And then finish him with some nice ground and pound. But, you know, Mirsad Bektic is no joke on the feet. This guy can do a lot. He's really versatile, does have finishing power. Was a guy that the UFC was behind a lot before the Darren Elkins finish, comeback from hell. But Josh Emmett he's just naturally heavy-handed. And I think it's really rare that someone discovers this late in their career. Normally, heavy-handedness is something you discover very, very early. You're hitting pads, and your coach goes, damn, you just hit hard. And then as you learn the technique, you hit harder and harder and better. But that heavy-handedness is usually like, you know, a fighter can just start out heavy-handed and then learn everything else. This is a guy in Josh Emmett who is now discovering he's heavy-handed. It doesn't look like a technical thing. It doesn't look like he's turning over his shots better or anything like that. They're heavy-handed shots. And it's like he's only now discovering it, which is even scarier if you look at it. But, you know, they're lining him up. He's knocking him down. And also a style like his is going to supersede somebody who may be on a better streak with better names, but doesn't get the knockout the way Emmett does. Crowds love it. Promotions love it. Can't deny that.
He's definitely building a better highlight reel. That's for sure. But you did say...
Yes, exactly.
You did say the magic words there. You said the word Darren Elkins. Now, we don't do prelim cards, but I do just want to take a minute here, because really, we'd be remiss if we didn't. Ryan Hall and Darren Elkins had an incredible fight. Ryan Hall, to me, showed an amazing athleticism, continued with the heel hooks, and really turned in a fight that I thought was going to provide him problems, and really didn't make it into a lot of problems for himself. So, good win by Ryan Hall. What did you think? Did you watch that fight or no?
I haven't watched it yet.
Well, it is a treat. Secondarily,
I will profess my own ignorance until I usually catch up with the prelims in the week after. So I'll watch that tomorrow and let you guys know.
Well, here's what I'll do. I'll recommend that you watch that one first. And then the second one, Brianna Van Buren had an incredible performance. We talk about fighters coming and getting lost in the light. If you go back and listen to the podcast we did about the Phoenix Rising series, Brianna was a part of that. She impressed me then. I was really happy to see her get her call up. They actually basically said Invicta's like a feeder system for the UFC, unofficially, wink, wink. She did a masterful job of dominating from bell to bell, and I am really excited. She called that a top 10er, too. So if you're a person that likes people that call out direct shots and not sit there and say, ho-hum, give me who you want, whoever I'll take, wherever we want to fight, she called it out in her hometown. She wants a top 10 opponent, and she knew she was reaching. She still wanted to do it. So good job out of her. As we started with, though, Jimmy, Uriah Faber and Ricky Simone, I guess all things that we've already set aside, I can't understate enough how glad I was for Uriah. Haven't really seen that knockout power. He says he learned that from Yadong, not, Yadong, but Song Yadong. I'm scared at what this is going to lead to, because this was nothing else but a stepping stone for him to get back into more fights and back into contention. And the face of the cliff is sharp. Once you fall off this cliff, let's say let me question you this way. How many losses does Uriah Faber need on his second run before you say he is completely out of title contention?
It would... How many losses?
Yeah, because to me it's one. One loss and the title contention is over. The run, if you will, has ceased.
More than likely, yes.
That's a lot of pressure.
More than likely, yes.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yes, it's a lot. But with his name, what, are you going to sneak in on a prelim? He came in with a lot of pressure. He just has a big name, fighting in Sacramento. I'm back. The Dan Marino analogy I used, he's not a backup quarterback. All right, that doesn't happen. When you have a name like Uriah Faber, all eyes are on you. And anything but a title victory, I want to say this again, anything but a title victory, Uriah Faber becoming champion, anything but that is failure. That's a lot of pressure because he accomplished everything else.
Okay, but to that same point, let's also not paint the picture of he didn't get his hometown crowd on a card full of alpha male that traditionally did well on the card leading up to his fight. So he pretty much, if you want to talk about momentum in home crowd support, he had all that going for him. Let's not pretend that if he gets a true contender in their home country, that we're not going to see a probably very different mindset as he walks out to the cage.
Yeah, I mean, everything was set up for him in terms of, obviously fighting in Sacramento, fighting his hometown, all these crowd very much behind him. Yeah, for him to get a contender, and we'll see if he gets one. But a contender fight, Madison Square Garden, etc., that's a different story.
So, Premium Podcast this week, we've already determined it's going to be about weight cuts. I listened to your YouTube channel, which we've started, by the way, now as well. If you guys want to check us out on YouTube, we will put all these episodes up there for your listening pleasure as well. It's just our MMA show. And starting next week, we'll begin to mention the subscribers to the YouTube channel, the same as we do Podbean and the iTunes reviews. Aspen Ladd's weight cut had a lot of impact on how you felt about her going into the fight. I was not as concerned, but I will say, 16 seconds in, I thought the stoppage was early. It was a clean hit. I'm not going to deny that it wasn't, but I've heard a lot of people talk about fighter safety, knowing how she seemed at weigh-ins. I don't think any of that should factor into stopping a fight. I'm sorry.
I agree. If it's so bad you need to stop it on a punch like that, where she seemed nice, clean shot, she was visually aware of where Randamie was. She was trying to turn to see her. Number two, the follow-up shot didn't land. She was completely aware, her body following Randamie, and it got stopped. If you need to stop a fight early, don't let him fight. If you're so bad, you're so dehydrated, I'm worried about, don't let him fight. The doctors, I think if the doctors had seen her weigh in and said, she can't fight, this is just, we don't like what we're seeing, and called it, I would understand. Looking the way she did, I would have understood it. They didn't. So you have to give her the same respect, the same, I'll stop the fight when she's not intelligently defending herself, that would give any other fighter. And that clearly didn't happen at all. That was one of the worst stoppages I've seen in a long time because she seemed totally clear-eyed. Yeah, it was a good shot. She got knocked down. I could not believe. And also, it wasn't like it was a big follow-up where she nailed her with a good one and then got her on the ground and there were the big hammer fists coming. The ground and pound didn't even start. The first follow-up shot missed. It hits her in the shoulder. And Herb Dean steps in and stops it. I thought it was absolutely atrocious. Also, I'll throw in, which I haven't seen a lot of people talking about it. I haven't seen a lot of guy fights stop like that. I don't know how many people would defend that in a men's MMA fight. I don't know if anybody would. It was bad. That was a bad stoppage to me. Really, really quick. And it sucks for Randamie because she's getting asked about it. It's not her problem. She didn't stop the damn fight. So anyway, I just thought it was way too quick. Way too quick.
When it's Ben Askren, that's fine. That's clear cut. You're done. It's over. You're out. This was not that. Oh, it depends on what happened before, how she looked the day before. I don't want to preview our premium podcast, but let's be honest. I've seen way worse behind closed doors in saunas than what I saw on a scale. Okay, to me, she was cramping, okay? If you've ever had a cramp, you've had that grimace on your face. Now, let's not turn it into the weight cutting kills the sport, because weight cutting has been and always will be a part of any athletic competition. I'm sorry. So these people have been doing this with less supervision for years. The UFC knows when they come into that hotel how much they weigh. We just saw it happen not too long ago. I'm trying to think of the name of it's a big jiu-jitsu guy. I've met him a few times too. I can't remember what his name is, but he was turned back from a fight because he came to the hotel too heavy. Help me with this, Jimmy.
This was in the UFC?
Yes. Who's like who would you say is one of like the 5th best jiu-jitsu guys in the UFC?
Gilbert Burns?
Yeah, yes, actually, Gilbert Burns. Good job. Way to go, Jimmy.
It's Gilbert Burns, yeah.
Yeah, so Gilbert Burns went to a UFC fight, was too heavy the day.
By the way, I'm not calling him a fifth best. I think he's one of the best. I just knew that Gilbert Burns was the one he was talking about. That's all. Yeah, he came in at like 190 or something.
Right. So they know what's going on. Well, and secondarily, this whole ceremonial weigh-in business, I don't even know why we're showing these early weigh-ins on TV. I don't want to take anything away from it. I watch them too. I understand the spectacle, but a big part of the reason that you're not supposed to be seeing that and you're looking at a ceremonial weigh-in is because you're not supposed to be seeing that. And you're supposed to be watching the ceremonial weigh-in where the scale's off and everything's happy. So I can't even fathom that Herb Dean took any of that into account. And if he did, it's a tragedy to that main event, to anyone that watched it, because this is a big setback for Aspen Ladd, and she's put a lot of time and hard work into being an undefeated fighter. Doesn't come easy.
It was just a bad call. Just a bad call as far as I'm concerned. And that sucks.
And as you said, it leaves so many questions for Randamie now, because to me, that is the most unconvincing win she's had.
To fight a great, an all-time great, a pound-for-pound queen, I think, in Amanda Nunes, and this is how you walk in, that sucks. It sucks for her. You know what I'm saying? Takes the shine off of her.
Yeah, it's difficult, even if we separate ourselves, and I just think of it from a fan's perspective. I can't put a whole lot of vested stock in that highlight and think to myself, yeah, this is the reason she's going to get Amanda Nunes out. She just, struck Aspen Ladd out.
Kinda. If she had blitzed her, if she had, done the Daffy Duck, spun her bill around with the right hand and she was completely out, I go, okay, maybe she got the power to hang with Amanda Nunes. She hit her with a clean right hand and Ladd was still there. 100%. Personally, I think Cyborg, Nunes hit you with that right hand, you're seeing Tweety birds. Like it is, you're done. So to me, it was like, okay, but if she had some vicious ground and pound follow-up or finish or some great submission transition, it would have been so much better for every party involved. Going into this fight, the issue I had with it was the winner getting a date with Nunes, be it Ladd or Randamie. You really got to give me something. You got to show me something really special, because Nunes is a once-in-a-generation kind of fighter, and the name she's beaten, I mean, she's great. So you got to really show me something to make me think you have a shot. And the stoppage took away so much of that, because I didn't see that. I saw a good right hand, knocked her down, but I didn't see the finish I needed to get behind a fight between her and Amanda Nunes, which is a shame.
If you had to pick one, would you want to see it against Nunes or would you want to see it against Cyborg?
Nunes. That would be my, I mean, it's frying pan or fire. I just think size-wise, one thing about Nunes is she's a small 45er. She's a big 35er. So at least there's a size. Cyborg is just, we talk about weight cutting. She is just massive. She is absolutely massive. And I would like to see, if Nunes gets her, being able to say, look, she's just better and technical and all these things, rather than, yeah, she's just bigger. Nunes is an all-around great fighter, but she's 135-pound sized. And I'd like to see them fight each other at 135 and see who's number one.
So you're not overly concerned about the first fight that they had way back in 2013 then?
No, not really. No. I mean, Nunes is one of those who's really hit her stride recently. I think it's a different kind of fighter. And the problem I had going in, although I went back and picked Randamie because of the weight cut, Randamie's inactivity over the last few years has been troubling. She just hasn't fought that much. Nunes in the last few years, it's hard to point out very many fighters who had a better run in the last couple of years than Amanda Nunes. She's really, really, really hitting her stride. She looks fantastic.
For me, it's almost like, what more can Amanda Nunes do? I mean, I don't know what else I need to see. I mean, at this point, it's just incredible. I can't think of any fighter that I had held in such a high regard. I mean, maybe at the time, maybe Ronda Rousey, when we thought she was unbeatable. I hate to say this. I truly feel like Amanda Nunes may be unbeatable at 2 different weight classes. That's insane.
She's going to be very tough to beat at 35. I would give Cyborg a pretty good shot in a rematch at 45. I think the wake up Cyborg got might be just what she needed. She seemed indestructible at 45. And what she found out is she isn't. I can take a shot and go down just like everybody else. So the one thing is that a Cyborg who knows she can be vulnerable might be more dangerous. So I certainly give Nunes, she's not invulnerable at 45. 35? Yeah, it's hard to see anyone unseating her right now. Shevchenko at 25 and her at 35? God, they're just monsters. Very tough for anybody to beat them in their weight classes.
All things considered, it's been a long time since we talked about card pacing. I will say, for 2 full fights followed up by 3 single rounders, I thought the card pacing went extremely well. I know to a lot of fans, especially even the casual fans, turning this fight out or not looking at this, or, you have that natural big drop off after, a major card fight week, considered or not. This generally was considered a second tier card. I was really impressed by this card. I thought, maybe memorable moments for the wrong reasons. I'll probably always remember that Uriah Faber knockout. I'll probably remember that Aspen Ladd-Poor stoppage for a long time as well, just as much as I would what we just saw with Ben Askren, for that matter.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a pretty entertaining card. Uriah Faber is going to be an interesting story moving forward for sure, because Cejudo taking on a name like that, especially selling out Staples Center or something like that, big money. So expect Cejudo to beat that drum a lot himself as well. Randamie might have gotten herself a title shot that, regardless of how it works out, which is probably in Nunes' favor right now, you could certainly see it at this point. So there was some interesting storylines, especially the rise of Josh Emmett as a knockout artist comparatively late in his career. There are a lot of good storylines to come out of this, and I thought it was an entertaining night of fights.
We've got a couple of things we want to touch on. First and foremost, as we mentioned, Premium Podcast. Someone did actually cite that they were mad about the Premium Pod, but to be fair, and just to reiterate, we're not changing anything. These 2 shows that we do, the pre and the post, the occasional bonus episode, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, are still free. The only thing was, we had really reached max capacity of what we could do for free, and we were continually having people ask us to do more. The only way we could do more would be to take those premium episodes and ask for a small payment for them in return so that we could afford to purchase the additional time we needed to create that content to begin with. So with that having been said, we are going to cover Pacquiao Thurman. We do have a sponsorship agreement again with Fight TV. So for anybody that wants to purchase the event, I would recommend Fight TV 110%. One caveat to that, just keep in mind, all carriers for this pay-per-view, and I'm not sure why, maybe you'll know, Jimmy, all carriers of this pay-per-view have a limited replay time frame. So unlike your ESPN Pluses, where you can go back and watch the whole card, and traditionally what you can do with Fight, go back and watch the whole card, I believe you only get about a month before you can no longer rewatch the pay-per-view. Do you know why? You're a bigger boxer guy than I am.
I am, but I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm actually going out to Pac Thurman for ESPN. I'm going to be with Jerry Cooney hosting the ESPN boxing show from Las Vegas. So I'm flying out to actually go to Pac Thurman, and I am really excited about that. It's going to be a lot of fun. But before I go, we're going to do our podcast breakdown of it. It's going to be good stuff because I'm really looking forward to this fight.
If you think on Wednesday that you are tired at your job, just think back to us, because on Wednesday, we're going to have to do the Pacquiao Thurman. We're going to have to do Dos Anjos Edwards. We're going to have to do the premium episode for the week. So we're going to have like a jam-packed Wednesday of material for you guys, but we wouldn't have it any other way. Also, one final note. It has just dawned on me, and I did not know this, and I doubt you did either, Jimmy. Did you know that on iTunes, we can only see reviews from America, not worldwide?
I did not know that.
I didn't either. So we owe a whole bunch of apologies to a whole bunch of people, because as I was looking at our chart of where our podcast is rated globally, it dawned on me that we had 125 ratings. And within those 25 extra ratings are probably like maybe 10 to 15 different reviews, all from different countries. So as the makeup for this, on the on the Friday show where we preview Dos Anjos Edwards, we are going to go through if you ever left anything from Canada, Australia, New Zealand, wherever the case was. We will be able to get back and make it right to you. And thank you for leaving an international review. And really, I apologize. I had no idea that when I was looking at those reviews, we were limited to just the US. But nevertheless, we were. So with that said, we appreciate you guys checking this out. And we will be back in the week with a bunch more comments.